Thanks, Joanne. I was about to say that.
There is nothing left.
After smell is a continuum.
Yeah, okay. I think we are live. Yes. Good morning, the people on this side of the oceans. Good evening, the people back home. Welcome. Our topic today is on boundaries. And as usual, we will kick off with our, Joanne, I have tried, with our speech person. Saya will give a hot a small speech, and then we'll start off. Saya, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It is World Cup season. Sorry for those who are not soccer or football fans. But let's begin with something very maybe relatable for those billions who are watching football at this moment. When you have a plain piece of land, that's what it is. It's a plain piece of land. It could either become real estate, or it could become a garden, a farm, for all you know. But when you draw 22 lines of different proportions and a circle at the middle, it converts that piece of land into a soccer field. And then just think about what is made possible by just those lines. And by the way, they're not walls, they're just lines. They're simple lines drawn on the, and some of them so small, they're small arches at the corner to indicate where the corner kick will happen. But those lines have converted a piece of land into the most popular sport under the sun. They've created an entire industry worth billions. They've been able to propagate something of dreams for young people and become a career for quite a number of others. Because of those lines drawn on a piece of land, what was initially a very rowdy sport, because original football included taking a ball from one village to another across trenches, open fields, under trees, and all manner of things could happen. You could jump on your opponent, you could trip them in that process. But by limiting it from one village to another, and instead restricting it to this 100 by 50 piece of land demarcated by 22 lines and a circle, it's become something that can be harnessed into a financial opportunity. Very often, separation or restrictions, or today's word, boundaries, are seen as something either difficult or offensive. But just the soccer example tells you the power and potential that properly well done, well-timed boundaries is able to unleash. I'm a Christian, and the good book, the Bible, gives us yet another potential example in the creation account of the Bible, contained in detail in Genesis 1 and then summarized in Genesis 2. The Moses, who writes the first book of the Bible, indicates that somehow God was also big on boundaries, if you like, because the original state described was one of desolation. It was dark, it was void, and it was empty. Everything was everywhere. And the first thing God ever did was to ask for lights, please. And then after that, say, okay, can we have some boundaries here? Let light be on one side and darkness be on another side. And when you read the whole of Genesis 1, it points the story of a God who keeps coming back and drawing boundaries each and every day. Day 1, he creates light and darkness, he calls day and night. Day 2, he creates what then becomes the sky and then the earth. And then day 3, he demarcates the land and the sea. And day 4, he creates the sun, the moon, and the stars. And day 5, he comes around and creates the sea animals. And day 6, he does the land animals and the human beings. And each of these days, he creates very distinct boundaries, either in operation or existence, or in form or in function. And what's very unique is when you read that account, it begins with the words darkness and desolate in Genesis 1, verse 1 and 2, but then ends in the very last verse, verse 31, with the words, and God beheld everything he had created, and behold, it was very good. Let me rephrase it in the Saya version of the Bible, then it would be, and God, after spending 7 days creating boundary after boundary and putting boundary after boundary, he looked back and said, this boundary business ain't bad after all. It's indeed very good. But there's something more that was able to emerge that. When you consider, for instance, the very first day, the whole idea of separating light from darkness, a boundary effect, was able to separate things that actually naturally should not commingle. So you can't have lit darkness or dark light. You either have light or darkness. And that was enforced in place by boundaries. And I think what was true then should be true in our lives every day, that, hey, we need boundaries to at times separate that which has been unnaturally put together. But it wasn't just about putting things apart. It was also about creating atmospheres of productivity. The first half of Genesis 1 is about creating environments, whether it's skies or trees or lands or seas. And then the second half of the creation account is about creating inhabitants of those environments, whether it's birds for the sky or fish for the sea or animals for the land. And all this was made possible, these environments of productivity were made possible exactly by that word, boundaries. Imagine if the sea was in the sky and the land was under the sea, some of the possibilities that we now have would not always be there. So whether it's soccer or whether it's, and I know the creation account is a disputed bit, but whether you agree with it or not, at least its educative value is powerful. Boundaries are true. But it wouldn't be a speech from Sir if I didn't mention something about history. Just think about us historically. Think about Africans historically. We were moving quite a bit all over the place. But then somehow, even in a rudimentary form, when we were still clans and the people who knew each other by what we traded and the totems that we believed in, we were very clear about our boundaries. You'd be able to know that that hill is where clan A begins or tribe A begins, and this river demarcates us from this other people. And that was very important. And why boundaries then became important in traditional Africa is, as it grouped people together, it again did exactly what was true in soccer and what was true in creation. It unleashed possibilities. People put together within certain boundaries and then assigned an identity, then were able to be organized for whatever purpose or ends, whether it was agricultural prosperity or to protect themselves against adversities, or come together to give each other solace and comfort. So rather than being something that was meant to put other people out, boundaries became the thing that put the people who required to be in within. And right there, even within our African setting, we're able to draw other finer boundaries within our existing boundaries. The boundaries about age groups, the boundaries about food, we call them taboos, the boundaries about what could be done, gender roles and stuff like that. And all those boundaries converted us from a diffuse mass of people moving from one place to another to entire kingdoms. And yes, we are kingdoms. We don't have Luya tribes, we have a Luya nation. It's not really Kalenjin tribe, it's a Kalenjin nation. It converted us from just a diffuse, disorganized individuals into really what we were, and I believe still are, a kingdom. So take your pick, whether it's from creation or from soccer or from our history as a people. Boundaries are not only crucial, but they also unleash other things. But why should we have a discussion today? Boundaries are not easy to either make, maintain, or enforce, yet we still need them. And we need to have that conversation. Back to you in studio.
Thank you, Sir, for at least, there's no group you've left out, from the religious people to the soccer fans. Everyone has been captured in the whole spiel. So let's start with, today we'll have Matthew and the visitor. So Joanne, you start us off. What are boundaries? Because I know we are not talking about the fence. I'm gonna resist the Swahili and the Luya words today. Pray for Jesus. We are not talking about physical fences and all that, but just give us your definition of boundaries.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you. Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. So my favorite definition of boundaries is by a therapist called Prentice Hemp Hill. And she says boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. And I'll say that again. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. For those who don't know me, my name is Joanne Mwangi. I am a life coach. I actually teach boundaries and inner child trauma healing. And in my boundaries class, I define boundaries as what is okay and what is not okay for any individual. Boundaries are our way of communicating what we need and what we don't need. Boundaries are directives and not suggestions. Boundaries are the ultimate act of self-love. Boundaries are also the ultimate act of self-care. Boundaries are what make us safe, and boundaries are the foundation for all healthy relationships. So that's how I would define boundaries. Back
Lydia,
to you.
Oh, thank you. Lydia, do you want to add on that? And what's the difference between a boundary and control?
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I can chime in. Thanks, John. John is my boundaries coach, and she's taught me a lot about boundaries. And also from my own work that I do also just to introduce myself, my name is Lydia. I'm a transformation life coach. I coach women on breaking the cycles, boundaries included, because we didn't learn, we didn't see, that was not modeled to us how to set boundaries. So we've kind of grown up with this blurred way of just thinking what boundaries are. So the way I see that is also what Jonah said is also my definition of boundaries, where I can love you and I simultaneously, but also setting boundaries ensure that you have respect, mutual respect and guidelines in any relationship, be it romantic relationships, child-parent relationships, work relationships, be it, just any type of relationships. And the difference between a boundary and control will be when you are setting a boundary, you're not per se looking at controlling the other person, but people who see boundaries as control are either passively resisting their need to actually control you when you set boundaries, or when you are wanting, if you feel the need to control other people through boundaries, then you are setting boundaries from the wrong perspective. So the way I see boundaries and control are two different dimensions there are two different dimensions to it, where by control, you want the person to do things in a certain way that only benefits you, while on a boundary level, I would think you want to put a boundary so that that person and you can actually benefit from this agreement or whatever you're laying down. But for control, you just want to do it for your own selfish needs. I will give an example. When you're putting a boundary in, let's say with children, and you tell them, there's a lot of need for control as parents. And so we tend to set boundaries out of our need for controlling our children. But when you are setting a boundary around, let's say, devices, right? You are not per se looking at controlling what the kids are doing around devices, but that is an unhelpful boundary for them and you maybe to spend more time connecting than rather them being on their devices most of the time. That also applies to all other areas of our lives, really. That's how I would define a boundary and control.
Thank you very much. So
Can I chime in on the control?
Oh, yes, Joanne, go ahead.
So one of the things that I'm noticing these days is that the word boundaries and a lot of this stuff has become more buzzwords than really truly active individual self-reflection and change of behavior, right? So we hear boundaries and we think doing things how we want to do them is a boundary. Now, I would like to also say that boundaries are not harmful to anybody in any situation. Boundaries remove people from harm. They do not cause harm. And harm can be emotional, it can be verbal, it can be physical. So in terms of control, I see where people say, okay, like for example, if I have a friend and my brother is single, me saying that I don't want my friends to date my family members is not a boundary, that is control. Because you cannot control how two adults have a relationship. That is control. You may not like the fact that you're going to be in an environment where there's drama between you and your family members, and it's going to be awkward and all the things, but you cannot, a boundary is not controlling the outcome of other people's relationship. That is not that's not a boundary. So that's the best example I can give, because that's one that resurfaces very frequently, where I don't want my loved ones to have romantic relationships with my other loved ones, because it's going to get messy, and I want to have control over all the relationships that I have with all these people around me.
Okay.
Back to you.
So let's go. So what kind of boundaries are there? It's not, this is not a picket fence or kind of boundaries. What kind of boundaries exist in the world that are not physical boundaries? Or should we just talk about physical boundaries, discount that, then continue down the chain of thought? Joanne, we'll start with you.
Okay. So there's levels of boundaries, and then there's types of boundaries, right? Levels of boundaries are 3 that I know of. There may be more, I don't know. But levels of boundaries is rigid, porous, and healthy. Rigid boundaries are where a person says, I will never, ever, 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 ever allow Posa to, I guess, maybe borrow my car or borrow my jacket or whatever, because Posa never ever does the right thing with my stuff. That's rigid. and Saya is agreeing. Posa, are you a violator of Saya's things? Because he's like shaking his head very
Ataniona.
So that's rigid boundaries. And I find a lot of rigid boundaries around money, because money is very, it's a very sensitive topic. I lend Posa money, she doesn't return my money on time. Posa disappears, I see Posa living her best life, yet I'm expecting my money back. So I decide I'm never giving anybody money, period. I don't care, because Posa violated my boundary. Porous boundaries are harmful boundaries because they create chaos in all relationships. Porous boundaries are where a person says yes when they really truly should be saying no to anything and everything. So porous boundaries, and I see Jacinta, my friend here, I'm going to use her as an example, because she uses this as an example all the time. So for us Africans, we love food, and food is the way we connect with each other. It's usually the center of any gathering. So Posa calls me and says, Joanne, can you make samosas for me? I have a gathering tomorrow. And instead of me saying, no, I'm not going to, I don't have the time, I'm not available, I make the samosas, which is what my friend Jacinta used to slave away, making 100 samosas. And then the person is like, and then bring them to my place. Then she drives across town to take the samosas. And then she is resentful and angry because she did not say no. So then she starts being passive aggressive with the person who asked for the samosas, because she did not tell this person, I'm not available, I cannot do it, I feel used every time you ask me to make samosas. But then also the people who live in the house with the person are bearing the brunt of this anger and aggressiveness, because she has, as a human being, you have to release your anger somewhere. And therefore the people you live with end up being the recipients of your anger and your passive aggressiveness. So for example, mothers, and I use mothers as an example as well, because we have a tendency to be people pleasers because of the world we live in, because of patriarchy, because of all the things. So you go to work, you do all the work wherever you're employed, then you come home and things have not been done. There's toys everywhere, there's dishes, a mountain of dishes in the sink. Your husband and the kids are busy watching World Cup. It's World Cup season right now. And you come in and you lose your shit, excuse my French, because that's really what we do. And we start yelling and we start having this aggressive behaviors in the home. And everybody's like, what is wrong with her? You probably did not set the right boundaries at work. So you're overworked at work. And then you come home, and instead of saying, you know what, I need everybody to clean up after themselves, or I need to delegate all these duties, you start washing those dishes angrily, banging things, and expecting your family to understand that you're pissed off with them, or that you don't want to do these duties. So porous boundaries are where there's a lack of communication, there's a lack of consideration for whoever is around you, because you show up as, you're literally a person who nobody wants to be around because of how you're showing up, because you cannot say no, and you cannot tell people what you need. Healthy boundaries, on the flip side, are driven by communication, very, very clear and concise communication. You tell people what you need, you tell people what works for you and what doesn't work for you. You don't over-explain your no's. You just tell people, you know what, that's not gonna work for me, and how they react. You don't feel the need to go and then soothe them because they feel bad about your no, right? People with porous boundaries will say no, and then feel bad about saying no, and then go soothe the person's emotions. So you're doing emotional labor on top of that. With healthy boundaries, you say, I'm sorry, I'm not able. You're unapologetic about your no's. So those are the 3 levels of boundaries. And I'll stop there in case there are questions, and then we can move on to the 6 types of boundaries.
Yeah, and just before we move on, to add on what you're saying, the 3 levels, healthy, rigid, and porous boundaries, these are things we can learn, because we can learn, or you may ask yourself, so what next? Or in relation to the work that we do, breaking the cycles, these are things we actually learned, especially when you have porous boundaries and very unhealthy or rigid boundaries. If you go back to how you were brought up, your environment, the people you hang out with now, or the kind of relationships you are in right now, or your children, you will realize that these are things I actually learned from my mother, from my father, from my siblings. So these are generational stuff, or lack of boundaries for families. You see families that have no boundaries whatsoever with each other, so they're always in each other's business. So you realize that you've actually picked up some of these characters from your family, from all those spaces you've been in. And so then you ask yourself, what next? What can I do to learn new ways? So there is hope that you can actually learn new ways of setting boundaries and starting to break the cycles of unhealthy generations of porous boundaries. On the flip side, families that have healthy boundaries, you can find that you actually came from a family that is healthy, that has had healthy boundaries, but then you start learning unhealthy boundaries with the people you associate with, relationships you're in, and the jobs you take up, and begin to not set boundaries. So it's a give and take, where you kind of hold yourself accountable. I need healthy boundaries just for myself and for the people that I interact with, and for the world at large.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to help people picture Jacinta making samosas. When we throw bashes in Kenya, the two people,
Bashes are parties, yes.
Bashes or parties in Kenya, the person who's either slaving is your house help, or your mboj, or your pocket. It's you. The only thing people are bringing from outside is beer or a drink. in North America, at least in the States, when I want to throw my birthday party, I will ask Joanne to bring samosas, Lydia to bring something I know they do very well in. And it's almost expected you will do this because it will flip. Next time Lydia will do the same. It's a Joanne, it's a nip and nikupe, it's a give or take situation. Yeah, so that's a difference between parties here and parties back home.
Not even
Joanne,
parties per se, the culture in this country, and I was telling a friend yesterday, it was one of the things that I had a culture shock when someone invited me out for lunch, and I was expecting that they would pay for my lunch, right? I mean, they've asked me out, hey, can you join me for lunch? And so I didn't carry my credit card or debit or money. I didn't have any money on me. So I am just there in a restaurant. We've eaten and I am full. And then I see them pay for their own bill and I am here. I'm like, so what's going on? What's happening? I've already eaten. It was a colleague. I just left my porch money in the office. You paid for yourself. What about me? So by the time this girl is explaining that, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you know that we actually, when I ask you out for lunch, I am just needing your company. It doesn't mean necessarily that I will pay for you, right? So there are clear boundaries from childhood where people understand, if I am going to ask you out for lunch, I have to say that, hey, John, would you mind, coming for lunch with me? I will pay. They have to say, I will pay.
My treat, yes.
Yeah, right? My treat. If they do not say, please do not assume that they are going to take care of your bill. Something that we in Kenya, someone asks you and you're like, cool, that's a plan, a plot out there. I didn't even have money for lunch. You go out, you don't even ask. So it's when you cross over the Atlantic Ocean, there are lots of things you start unlearning. Oh, there are boundaries around money. There are boundaries around what you ask people. There are boundaries around what you show people and tell. Granted that some of them do not have boundaries on what they tell, but you are expected to also just kind of learn some of these things real quick and try to merge to a culture that you're not used to. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I can piggyback on that, it's not even just it's not even just across the Atlantic. Even back home, from a tribal perspective, with all the different tribes we have, there are unspoken boundaries or rules that are cultural for each tribe. For example, the Maasai, you cannot shake hands with the elder. You bow down, they touch your head. That's their way of greeting. Now, if I'm Kikuyu from Nyeri, have never interacted with a Maasai, how will I know that? There's no way to know. But that's a boundary violation, right? If I go shake my hand, for them, they take offense. So it's also just being able to read the room and know what's okay and what's not okay, but also be brave enough to ask the right questions. How do you greet in your culture? The world is becoming very intertwined, and for those of us who work in corporate offices, you may think that something is okay for a colleague when it's not okay based on the culture they come from. So Americans are very open about coming and talking about all the things that happened over the weekend in their home, in their family, in their relationships. Us guys are like, TMI, I don't want to know all that stuff. TMI is too much information for those of you who don't know. I don't want to know. I just came here to earn my check, go away. I need to do my job and leave this place. I didn't come here to make friends. It's a cultural thing, but we don't typically talk about it. And a lot of times those kinds of things will make you be perceived a certain way, especially in the workplace, as unfriendly, as unapproachable. So if you're in a corporate environment, read the room and read the corporate culture, because your way of being based on where you come from, the family of origin, the things you were taught are okay and not okay, may not be okay in certain environments. So this work that you have to consistently do and consistently change is very hard. It's very hard. And therefore, we also need to have grace for people who don't show up the way we expect them to show up, the way we think they should show up.
And now that we are there, and before my brain forgets, so how do we teach our children who are, as Joanne told us weeks ago, Wakosamila, they are not Americans and they're not Kenyans, they're in between there, but we need to tell them the stuff you don't still talk about, but you need to embrace this part of the state's culture without them getting lost. So how are we teaching the progeny we've brought here to navigate this, especially that corporate culture, before we go to the other part of the types of boundaries? Yeah.
How do we teach our children to have boundaries, or
No,
what
as
to
in
say,
these
or
nuances.
what to say and what not to say?
Like just the nuances, as in there's, you know, when like the children here under this roof, it's a small, there's a 254 flag here. Things fly, the 25, okay, not the horrible beating, we talk and all that. But when they leave our houses, how do they understand those nuances? Because they are lost. So how do we teach immigrant children? Because it's difficult for them to balance both worlds.
I think our children know more than we do, and we are the ones who need to learn from our children in this environment, because we have to understand what they're experiencing outside of the home, because we have a tendency of being very Kenyan or Ghanaian or whatever culture you come from. You are that in your home, forgetting that once you leave the door, you're no longer that. And the world outside your door does not view you as that per se, right? You're just a black person for us who are black. You're just a black person. Your son is a black boy, your daughter is a black boy, a black girl. So it's consistently allowing them to tell you what's okay and what's not okay for them, but also telling them what's okay for you and what's not okay for you. And also teaching them the natural consequences of behavior, because if your child violates a certain boundary that may be okay in our culture, there is a natural consequence wherever they will be violating or whoever they will be violating, right? So, for example, touch can be violating to some people. If you touch a person a certain way, it may be violating. And when you're violating a person's boundary, or when a person has a boundary and it's not spoken, you as the violator don't get to tell them whether it's okay or not okay. For you violating me, I'm the one who knows what is okay for me and what's not okay for me. So if it's telling our children, if a person tells you no, no means no. Do not, it's not an invitation to negotiate whether it's okay or not okay. What may be okay for you may not be okay for another person. So it's us as adults also being able to receive the boundaries of children, which we consistently violate in our homes. When our child says, no, I don't want to hug Uncle Saya, you say, no, Uncle Saya is my brother, you must hug him. So what does that do to the child? The child then knows that internally that adults will forever violate what's not okay for them. And that invites all sorts of bad behavior by adults to children. And then it also diminishes a person's ability to self-advocate for what's okay and what's not okay. Because if you're taught from a young age that adults will always say what's okay and what's not okay, and you as a child are not allowed to say what's okay and what's not okay, then you never ever self-advocate, which is why most people come here from other cultures and cannot say, no, I'm not going to work 50 hours a week. You're not going to, I have a family, I have whatever, you know, there's that violation that consistently happens. There's the misuse of labor that happens. So you don't want to consistently invalidate a person's know and natural intuition, as Jacinta says. Yes, we are all born with that intuition. We know what's okay and what's not okay. And I tell my class, observe a 2-year-old. When you observe a 2-year-old, when they don't want something, that is that natural God-given intuition. It doesn't matter what you do, they will not do it. If they don't like broccoli, it doesn't matter how you color the broccoli or what you do with it or what kind of things you put on it, they will not eat it, right? So it's just not violating a child's boundaries. That teaches them how to interact with the world outside of the home.
So for the people with the terrific tools, please don't beat out that no, just harness it properly. Lydia,
Yes.
do you want to? Yes, I'm very pro 2-year-olds. They are misunderstood.
Do not, for those who chapa their children or beat their children because they've said no, if you don't want it for yourself, this is my mantra for life. If you don't want it for yourself, you should not want it for any other person, including your child. If you don't want your boss to slap you because you did something wrong in the office, don't slap your child because they did something wrong in the home. Punishment, that kind of violence is a violation of boundaries too.
Okay, Lydia, do you want to add something to that train of thought? I promise I will keep the script in my head. I promise.
I can. And what's really interesting when John was saying that is it triggered something in me because most of us in our African setting, as I said earlier, we did not grow around healthy boundaries. I can speak that for myself. And I'm a parent. And so my parenting really, it's kind of, I was copying parenting from my mother or father, the way they parented. That is how I used to parent my kids. And so you give threats. If you don't do this, do this. If you don't do this, I'm going to beat you or I'm going to punish you. So children grow up knowing that someone who loves you can actually also beat you. You know, someone who loves you, because I tell them in the morning when they go to school, I love you, honey, you're brave, you're this, you're this, you're this, you affirm them. But then when they come back from school in the evening, you're on their case with something, you're hitting them, right? And so there's that confusion. But mommy, or in the morning you said you love me, in the evening you are beating the crap out of me. And so they tend to associate love with violence or pain. And that is why there is a very strong sentiment that someone said, if you're a victim of violence when you are very young, you either grow up to be a victim or an abuser, right? And so when you notice that is how strong this message can be, yes, Joanne, we accept violence as love. You find women who were brought up in abusive homes. You saw your mother being abused by your father, your mother or father abused you, you accept violence in the home. You find fathers or men who saw their fathers being abused or they were abused at home. They are silent when they're abused by their women. They don't speak out. And so we have very unhealthy and dysfunctional relationships because as a man, healthy boundaries or that was not modeled to me. I grew up thinking a woman can actually say some things to you and you keep quiet and you're abused. And because men are supposed to be, because we grew up telling our sons, you're a man, you cannot cry, you cannot do this, brave up, be strong and all that. So men are not allowed to be vulnerable. And so women also, people tell you, I've had other crazy mothers, in the past, if he beats you, he loves you, he's just showing that he's caring for you. Some cultures still do that. So as women, we grow up, we get into relationships that are familiar, that model that kind of hurt and pain. And that is why it's really, really, really important that we start to reparent ourselves first as parents, give ourselves what we missed when we were young. That is the only way we are going to give our children what they truly need to grow up as sovereign beings with their own autonomy, as Jacinta said, and the intuition that is God-given, if you do not reparent yourself, there is no way you're going to be a healthy parent to your child. And so that shift must happen. You must heal parts of you that are bleeding so that you do not bleed on your child, because they are not responsible for your trauma or for your unhealed wounds that you're inflicting. And these boundaries, not setting them up, are things you truly learned from the past. Yes, so that's what I can add on that.
Okay. Hi, to Rudy. Let's go back to
Types
now
of
this
boundaries.
the types of boundaries. See, this is why I don't write questions down. Now we would not have that discussion.
No, that was healthy, I think.
It's healthy and necessary. Yes, it's necessary. So types of boundaries. We have physical boundaries, which is basically your physical space, your body, and the space around you, where you live, where you work, where you're standing, whatever, like where your body is present, whatever the surroundings you are in are physical. So like I said earlier, hitting somebody is a violation of a physical boundary. Forcing hugs and kisses and handshakes, that is a violation. Standing too close to somebody, like back when and this is a cultural thing, right? It's not right or wrong or whatever, but there is a way that somebody may stand too close to you that feels like a violation of your personal space, right? Holding somebody's hand when they don't want to be held, public display of affection. If you're not a person who likes that type of thing and your partner is a person who likes that type of thing, that could be a violation. So it's just not doing things that violate a person's physical presence. And then reading or touching things that don't belong to you, taking things that don't belong to you, especially and parents. I like to address parents, because the reason we are doing all this work is to ensure that we raise a generation that's not going through the things we went through, right? So parents, don't read your children's journals, don't read your children's diaries. That is a violation of their physical boundaries or material boundaries. So that's one. Sexual boundaries is the next one. And that is basically touching a person's body without consent, telling, yes, and not even your spouses, don't do that. And engaging in non-consensual sexual acts, right? Doing or performing sexual acts on children. Children can never consent to anything sexual, whether it's speaking or witnessing or any of that. Don't do it. They're also not capable of communicating their sexual limits. They just know something is not right. So that is something that we have to be cognizant of. And then there's emotional boundaries. This one is very complex because it's not visible, right? So emotional boundaries involve a person's emotions and the labor they put into being in any environment. In my class, I call it the I amness, right? When we are born, we have a specific thing that is I am XYZ, whatever that is about me. And so the emotional boundaries require those around us to be also emotionally intelligent, right? So these are one of the most violated boundaries, because a lot of us are not emotionally intelligent. We don't know what we are feeling. We don't know why we are feeling it. We don't know how to ask for our needs to be met. Therefore, we just violate other people's boundaries. But if you want to know whether you're emotionally being violated, is your body alerts you when you hear somebody say something that just is going to that just violates you in any way. So it may be something, and it goes around all the boundaries, right? It's a physical, all the boundaries. But if somebody says something, especially about how you feel, they're violating your emotional boundaries, right? You cannot tell. We tend to tell people, oh, you shouldn't be that sad, or you should get over it, or it's not that bad. That is violation of a person's emotional boundaries, right? Because we cannot tell another person how to feel about anything out there, because each person experiences life in their own way. And I'm going to stop there real quick in case there's anything that Lydia wants to add, or Saya, or somebody else.
I'll let Saya go, then I can add something. Thank you.
Saya, do you want to add a historical perspective? I always say I ambush him with this historical bit, but no, go ahead.
I actually have more questions than I do of a perspective to share.
Mm-hmm. Okay, ask.
How do we balance between boundaries and I don't know if the right word is discipline or
permissiveness?
Your permiss. So, for instance, like you said, you shouldn't read your children's diary, but I'm imagining in cases where there have been stories of children who are going through really dire times in school, and they're not able to vocalize they're putting it down in their diary, and it is only when a parent was able to say, read that they were able to become aware and intervene accordingly. So where do we draw the line between, I think that word is, I don't know if permissiveness is permissiveness the one for saying like anything goes kind of
yes.
Yeah. So how to draw the line between boundaries and the only word I'm hearing here is in Swahili, so kuachilia, like things like it becomes almost laissez-faire, like in the name of boundaries, that anything
goes.
And also a rider to that is how do you draw the line between that, hey, here we are drawing boundaries and values. So for instance, if I'm Muslim, if I'm a Muslim, and according to my faith, the ladies need to appear a certain way, maybe with hair covered, or you don't go into public with a male if you're a female, and stuff, who is not your relative. Where are we drawing the boundaries, and where are we respecting the culture or the faith in this particular place? Just help me make sure that those lines are not hazy.
So I'm going to first talk about the kids in terms of reading their journals or their diaries or whatever it is they're writing. It is a slippery slope. I say to those who I coach, if you have not fostered a safe environment at home with your children, then you're going to be violating their boundaries. Because if you fostered a safe environment and you are a safe person to your child, they will come and tell you what they're going through at home. I know that for a fact. And I know that for a fact because it's something that I've seen in my home. And I'm not saying I didn't make mistakes. I made mistakes. My child felt unsafe with me. But the moment I changed the way I'm parenting, she became safe with me. She was able to tell me the most horrible things that she was experiencing without fear of judgment, or with fear of judgment, but knowing that I am safe and I will protect her and I'll do whatever needs to be done to get her to a safe space. Now, most of us start violating a child's boundaries when they are so young, and therefore they stop feeling safe with us from age 2. Therefore, by the time they're teenagers, It doesn't matter what you do or say. You may tell, you may be what Lydia was saying. In the morning, you're telling them you love them. At night, when they come with a bad grade, you're beating the crap out of them. And therefore, you're not a safe person. So if that child is struggling, guess what? They're not going to tell you that they're struggling. They're not going to tell you that they're being bullied. Or if you're a person who says, who gaslights, because that's what we do as parents. We gaslight our children, especially as immigrant parents or as single parents or as parents who are struggling in whatever environment we are in, whether it's here in the US or in Kenya or in whichever country you're in. We tend to tell our children that they should be grateful because of what they have, and they should not have complaints about what is happening. It's not that bad. And we also try to tell them, you should have seen what I went through when I was your age. And therefore you invalidate their experiences, and therefore their safe space may be that journal. Their safe space may be their friends. Their safe space may be somewhere else. So now, is it okay to read the journal in that case? I don't know. I still say it's a violation of boundaries, right? But I think the best way to find out from, especially teenagers, for those of you who have teenagers, because teenagers are struggling a lot, ask them what was the most exciting part of their day, or what was the most hurtful part of their day? What would they have liked to change about their day? And listen without judgment. When your child says they don't want to go to school, don't automatically think about it as defiance. Find out what's going on, right? Because a lot of times when a child is struggling, as a parent, it is inconveniencing to us because we have to sit with our emotions. We have to nurture them and create a safe space for them. And it's inconvenient for us in many different ways. It's inconvenient that you might have to call into work and go deal with the school thing. It's inconvenient that you may have to cancel something to do this thing for your child. So it's all about creating safety in the relationship that you have with your child. And if you have not been safe, then now you're starting from scratch, right? If your child is a teenager and they haven't felt safe with you all their life, you're starting from scratch and it's going to be hard. So I don't have a good answer, Saya. Maybe that's a question maybe a psychologist or psychiatrist may answer, but I still think it is a violation of boundaries. Now, if a child has been saying that they're going to harm themselves, or you've seen symptoms of them harming themselves, yes, then by all means, go read the things that they've written, check on their social media, find out from friends so that you can know what's happening. But just there's the narrative that this is my house and I have access to everything. I think that's a violation of boundaries. And Lydia, you can add to that if you have a different perspective. Or Jacinta, I would ask Jacinta also to add if
I was
she
actually
has
about
something.
to call Jacinta. She's on this call. Just before she comes on, I echo what you're saying and agree to that, because we model to our children really how they need to behave, or you model to people how to treat you. So when it comes to setting boundaries with children, I'm a fairly young parent. My kids are 8, so I can't speak to people who have teen kids. I don't still understand their struggles, but I know when my kids were young, because I didn't know really how to set clear boundaries. I know in one way or another, I may have violated their boundaries. So it's taken me a lot of years to unlearn and change those things and start creating a safe environment where my sons will then come to me and tell me everything and anything that happens in school, or see me as their parent, but at the same time they are free. So one thing that I can really say is know your limits as a parent when setting boundaries with these children. Know where this ends and this starts. You're still the parent, but also remember that your child is a sovereign being, created by God with their own intuitions. Treat them as such. and kind of create this relationship that is safe, as you say, where your child is able to openly come and tell you their struggles, what they're going through, and find ways you can help them. The danger to not creating safe environments, especially when it comes to that specific point, Saya, of reading journals, is that we raise up grown kids that think that it's okay to invade people's privacy. We have issues in marriages, in relationships, where the number one thing that has broken most marriages is what you know. You need to know everything about your spouse, so you're always on their phone. They dash to the bathroom, you've taken their phone, or you've done this, you're going through everything. And so you end up creating mistrust because of what you've probably seen. And if you dig down, you probably saw your mom or dad go through your journal growing up, and they would question you, they would get mad, how did you write this? And the need to control people is exactly the problem as well, where you feel you have to read and know what Lydia is writing as your child, if Lydia is your child, so that you control how they probably think around that. How about we first find the problem and start parenting consciously, as Dr. Shefali says, where you are in the journey with your child. Sometimes I used to disagree, but now that I'm a parent myself, parenting really is about you, the parent. It's not about the child. It's you and some of the things you need to do to create safe environments and homes for your child to grow up, so that you avoid repeating the same cycles that you saw growing up. And that's what I would chime in when it comes to boundaries with children and how I see that.
Jacinta, do you want to chime in? Oh, let me put on my MD hat a bit, because I'm the only one parenting teenagers here, right? So
No.
I'm sure
there are several.
On the panel, not everyone.
Yes.
Not everyone on the. So you have to start parenting from the day the ova meets the sperm. From that day, you have to please go. Let's do to our own horn. Please go back to our parenting video. I'm going to look for it and post it here. You have to be conscious about how you parent, so that you create a safe space from it's called a morula stage, until because starting when they're teenagers is hard. Teenagers read, they can tell when you're genuine or not. Create a safe space so that they can tell you when the fight in school happened, when the teacher was giving them a bad eye, when they fall in love, when they have a crush on someone. Create a safe space so that you don't need to actually read into the journals. And with the advent of social media and non-written, as if they type on all this stuff on Discord and other things that we don't have access to, their teenagers are writing things you will never see, because if they choose to die by suicide, they will go with that stuff. It's not in a journal that you pick up and read. So just parent from the day the ova meets the sperm. Parent consciously. We'll put that thing up. Then I want you to think about famous journals, the Diary of Anne Frank, and then look at the journals all these mass shooters have put out there. Like look at the Columbine disaster. When teenagers don't have an avenue to talk, they will talk to the wall, they will talk to a journal. So create that space. You will never, ever need to read their journal.
Awesome.
The journal should be beautiful enough or sad enough or impactful enough to be read many years later, like the Diary of Anne Frank. Because she wasn't bitching about their family. She was talking about the war and all that stuff. It wasn't what their parents were doing to their, So just, the Columbine disaster, we only read the pain these children were going through. So Jacinta, sometimes I can be a coach, sometimes. Jacinta.
And I think just before you say, you parent where conception occurs, to me, parenting starts from when you're choosing a partner.
Yes.
And it's that serious. Some people really were not I say some people, when you look at how, when you choose partners and people you're deciding to parent with in future, if you're blessed with the fruit of the womb, is really important. But that does not mean that now or what next, I'm already in these relationships, I already have kids. You can learn new ways of parenting, of setting boundaries with your children. But really, we need to start teaching our kids when they're very young. The person you choose to marry or have children with is really, 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 really important and kind of forms the basis of how your family trajectory will go. Yeah.
And real quick, for those who don't have children and want to have children, I think it's absolutely crucial that you take time to heal the things that have hurt you from your family of origin, to work on yourself before you have children, because we cannot predict what kind of partner you're going to have a child with. You cannot predict what kind of parent that person you have a child with is going to be. You cannot predict what kind of child you're going to have. It is you taking responsibility for your wounds that you have, and there's no human being walking this earth without wounds, without core wounds that come from childhood. They may not come from your parents, they may come from the education system you went to, they may come from the culture you come from, they may come from the religion you come from, they come from somewhere from your childhood. And just being able to unpack that stuff, being able to go for therapy if you need therapy, being able to look at life from a curious perspective, because children are curious. Children operate from a place of curiosity. They are not operating from a place of judgment and control like adults. For us, we operate that way because something in our childhood was violated, and therefore we want to control everything around us for safety. It is a lack of safety that makes us need to control people, places, and things. So working on yourself so that you can feel safe within yourself, you can feel safe within your environment, you can trust your intuition, will help you choose a partner that is safe for you, and therefore your children will be in a safe home. Now, if you're already in an environment where you're not safe and you're not feeling safe, you don't feel safe by yourself, you don't feel safe with your partner, it is time to start working on that. You can get a coach, you can get a therapist, but work on yourself, because what you're doing in your environment right now, especially if you have children, is you're harming them and you're creating another wounded generation. So Jacinta, sorry, we talked too much. Go ahead and share.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes, we
cool.
can.
Yes. Just to piggyback on what Joanne just said, it's crucial that those of us who are parenting, I'm parenting one teenager and one young adult. One of the things, the most profound thing I ever learned or had somewhere, and I did for myself, was to learn to parent myself first before I could successfully parent these young adults or teenagers. And as Portia said, parenting doesn't really start when they are 13, 14 and they're starting to act out. It starts in vitro. It starts from the time they're very young. And creating that safe space, because it's crucial for your children to open up to you. They have to feel like you are a safe space for them. But if you're not even safe within yourself, you're not going to parent them successfully, because you're going to be more reactive than proactive or responsive to situations that come up. And your kids will feel that. And when you're being reactive, your first instinct is to accuse, to indict, to be judgmental, to actually push them further away from you. In this time when they are going through things, they will avoid you at all costs if they feel you're not a safe space for them. So safety requires for us to do the work that is necessary to actually become safe within ourselves and parent the triggered parts of ourselves that we are projecting on our kids. That's number one. Number two, it requires us to open dialogue that is not judgmental. As parents, we tend to think that we are the parents, the children should come up to our level. The children we are raising, they are growing up in a very complex world. They're exposed to all kinds of things, and they are trying to socially fit in. They have all kinds of requirements, whether it's academic activities. They are overwhelmed. They sometimes they are being bullied. Sometimes they're comparing themselves with what they are seeing on social media. They're living in a very complex world, and if we don't see the world, come down and see their world from their perspective, or come down to their level, they are not going to open to us. So I know as Africans, we're like, I'm the parent, I dictate, my rules go, and the kids are like, no, you're not. I have my own, I need to be, they are trying to assert their own autonomy, their sovereignty. And again, the safety question. So when we go violating their boundaries to go into their very private spaces, like their journals, and looking through their phone, we are actually violating their autonomy, their safe space. And we need to be asking ourselves why the children are not feeling safe to come talk to us. When they feel safe enough that you're going to actually see, hear, and understand them, you will be the first person they come talk to when they are going through a difficult time. The angle to look at this is, a lot of times we've done a pretty decent job, a pretty good job, but we don't trust ourselves that we have done a good enough job for these children to make the right decisions, to go out there and thrive as human beings that are capable of functioning in this world. So when you're not trusting yourself, you're going to constantly be going behind dark alleys and going through their drawers to make sure that they're not doing the things you told them they were not good to do, right? The other part of this is, what does that do long term when our children don't have, their boundaries are violated from a very young age? They go into adult relationships, either violating their other people's boundaries, or they themselves thinking it is okay for their spouses to be to violate every one of their boundaries, or to not respect their boundaries, because they learned that it was okay when they were young to not have any sense of autonomy or sovereignty, or to have a private life for themselves. And no adult relationship can actually succeed successfully if it doesn't have healthy boundaries. So that's really all I can add to this conversation. Thank you.
You are welcome. And that's just physical boundaries. Hi. Joanne, next one.
I think they have gone through physical, emotional, and
I went through physical, emotional, and which one was the other one? Sexual boundaries.
Okay, then let me ask. No, wait. Okay. Because you mentioned emotional. Okay, let's tackle the sexual one. No, I don't know what. Okay, whatever you choose. So my two questions. I want you to because you mentioned emotional labor, and our side chat we also talked about it. Then I want you to just talk about the sexual boundaries. You know, these people who read about cricket style or in some book they've read, and you are not comfortable doing it in bed because you're used to kifo chamende. There's no other way. That missionary style, and
yes, there is another way. You found it. We have people who are not who don't understand.
I have
Kiswahili.
said missionary style. I have said no. I'm saying I'm just. Someone has actually laughed at me, but surely there's no better one than kifo chamende. Anyway, but just let's just talk about those things, especially for partners who are hooked on to porn. They watch that stuff and they want to practice it on you. I just want you to comment on that, because they don't think it's a sexual violation. They just think we are doing it to please our partner, because they forget that consent needs to also occur within a marriage situation, and the emotional labor part. Whoever gets my gibberish, just go on. Start.
So in sexual boundaries are mostly, I would say, violated in romantic relationships. And especially marriages where religion is is the foundation of the marriage. There is a lot of, there's not a lot of, I want to restructure that. Marital rape is a thing that happens. There's an assumption that, and this is usually men, so forgive me, men, because it is a thing and it is the truth and we have to talk about it, where men think that because somebody is your spouse or is your wife, you can have sex with them whenever, wherever, based on your needs, not their needs. Consent is mandatory in all aspects of life, especially sexual consent. There is, how do I say it? So in a relationship, in a marriage or romantic relationship, if a person is not comfortable, male or female, this is just not for men, male or female, does not want to do the thing that you want to do, there no is a final, is non-negotiable, right? These are those boundaries. This is a certain boundary that is not spoken about, the non-negotiable. And anybody in a relationship needs to have that conversation about what is negotiable and what is non-negotiable. What are the things? So a lot of us say, cheating is a non-negotiable for me. If you go cheat on me, we are done. We are not discussing, I'm out. So in terms of sex, what is negotiable and what is non-negotiable? Are you a curious person sexually, or are you not curious and don't want to do certain things? And is your partner willing to respect that? And if your partner is not willing to respect that, what are the natural consequences of that? Because if it's somebody who is addicted to porn and is going to do those things regardless of whether the partner wants to do them or not, they may go violate another person. They may violate the children in the home. They may find a relative of yours who is willing to do the things, right? So it's you having those conversations. Boundaries require honest communication. Boundaries require hard conversations that most of us are not willing to have. Mm-hmm. So it is having those conversations before, but also understanding that maybe the woman you married has gone through so many things, or the man you married has gone through so many things and they have changed. So we talk about sexual boundaries in terms of what a person wants to do or what a person doesn't want to do. There's medical things that make a person incapable of doing the things they were able to do before, right? So you have to be able to have these conversations surrounding sex, because a lot of us grew up in environments where where sex was taboo, right? Many people were told, girls were told, if you sit next to a boy, you'll get pregnant. That's not true, right? So it's just getting back to basics and having those conversations honestly, first with yourself, because a lot of us are lying to ourselves, right? About what we like and what we don't like. And then lying to our partners about what we like and don't like. There's also the narrative that a woman who is curious and exploratory, Mikey, queer yourself can. Yeah, a woman who is curious sexually, right? Who knows what pleasures her is a whore. And that comes from a religious perspective, and it comes from patriarchy, all the things that a woman should not enjoy sex, which is wrong and is not okay. So it is important for people to be truthful and willing to accept a person for who they are, but also you as a person to be willing to change if you're in a relationship, to compromise. And like Njoki says, porn is not exclusively problematic. And yes, people do watch porn. People selectively watch porn. Porn is problematic when it becomes an addiction. It's problematic when it becomes an addiction. But if a partner is not comfortable or willing to do a certain thing, then you cannot force it on them. You cannot force it on them. I hope that answers your question, Posa. I think Lydia also wants to add.
I can say something, yeah. So when it comes to sexual boundaries, they're all about how people touch your body, how people see your body, how people treat you in sexual situations, and what you're comfortable doing to others. And the reverse is true, right? And so setting sexual boundaries, as you said, these are usually people who are either in a relationship or married, or who have mutual agreement sexual relationships. I don't know, whatever situation you're in when it comes to sexual boundaries, every time a sexual boundary or someone violates your sexual boundaries, just ask yourself, what is it that I did not communicate that did not make it clear for this person? You teach people how to treat you. So reevaluate your relationship with that person. Go to the basics. When you started out this sexual or romantic relationship, was it clear from the beginning that these are my boundaries around sex? Or was it clear even at, that's why at the workplace we sign sexual whatever, what are those called? Anytime you get to a new job.
Sexual harassment.
Yes, sexual harassment policy. There is, every company has that. And so it's very important when you start something that the company lays out the policy they have against sexual harassment. And so why is it that we cannot set those boundaries when we are starting out? Because if we start out a relationship and all you want is to please me, so you do what I want, so down the line, retrospectively, you do not have a right. Well, people can change their minds, but it's going to take a lot of energy to start explaining why now you don't want it. At the beginning, you're okay with it. So setting these boundaries when you start a relationship is very, very, very important. And, nowadays, more men are even sexually abused. As a mother to boys, I like to speak out. So men need to also speak out. If it's wrong, it's wrong. No, it's a no. I am not in a position to do that. And if you have a mutually respectful relationship with your partner, they actually should be able to understand that my partner, that is a no goes on when it comes to sexual boundaries. Same thing at the place of work. We have men or women commenting certain way to Black women, to white women, to all colors or all forms or all shapes. People sometimes there is this unconscious biasness or commenting that people do. If you do not speak out and tell them, I do not like that, I would rather be referred to as so-and-so, or, don't tell me how I'm dressing, or don't say this about the way I am dressing. Instead of blaming the women, you were raped or you were done this, or men, because you are dressed in a certain way, we need to start setting those boundaries early so that people can start respecting them. Yeah.
Okay, and the emotional labor piece, we haven't discussed that.
Oh, the emotional one, I think John kind of gave a high level. Emotional, or
emotional labor.
Oh, I will let John speak on that.
So emotional labor is when one person in any relationship, whether it's a family relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's friendships, where one person is doing all the work, emotional work, right? So it is the contribution you make. So I'll give an example in terms of a household. So there's mother, father, and children. Typically, the mother is the one who is doing all the emotional labor of planning what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, how it needs to be done. Are the kids going to be wherever they need to be on time? Are all the doctor's appointments set up? Who is taking the kids to the doctor's appointment? Who is taking the kids for soccer practice? Is the husband's eye appointment made? Is the husband's physical made? What's being eaten for the week? Who is cleaning what in the house? That all takes emotional labor, right? It's work. It's emotional work that the person has to do. And when it's not equally distributed in the household with the adults, then one person is bearing the brunt of that emotional labor, and the other person is typically just riding along and things work. And what happens is the person who carries the emotional labor tends to burn out. Because they are having to do all the work in their mind. Their mind is hyperactive all the time. And most of the people who do the emotional labor are codependents. Codependents are people who tend to find their sense of worth in doing for other people pleasers. Yeah. So it is super, super crucial to tell people that you're in relationship with, whether it's a family setting, whether it's a workplace, that to delegate the thought processes of making things happen wherever you are. In the home, I would suggest having a list of all the things that need to happen, because sometimes you have to create a visual. If you're a home where there's a spouse and children, it's saying, these are the things that I have to think about on a weekly basis and make happen. And I need your help, spouse, to get these things done. What can you take over? Without also needing to control and supervise how that person gets those things done. Because women, we also like to control how the spouse does the things that they need that need to be done, right? So it's delegating and trusting that the person is capable of doing those things. Delegating and knowing that the person is capable of picking up the kids from school if they don't have a memory problem, right? It's having that communication. If you're friends and you're the person who is forever carrying the emotional labor whereby people call and just dump information on you, and you have to be problem solving all the time, that is emotional labor. So it's having the awareness. When somebody calls you, say, are you calling to vent, or are you calling, do you need a solution? Because if you're a person who is always solving problems for others, you're the codependent, you're going to go into problem solving perspective like immediately when somebody calls you and starts talking about a problem. If you ask if they're venting or if they need a solution, then you know what to do with the information. If somebody's venting, then you know you don't need to do anything with it, and you just let it be. But on the flip side, if you're a person who is constantly emotionally dumping on others and giving your problems to others, ask the person if they have the capacity or the time, because sometimes we violate people's time and emotions by just calling and just dumping stuff on them, and you don't even know what their capacity is at that moment. So it's important to ask people if they have the time and the capacity, because somebody might be in a situation themselves that you're not aware of that makes them incapable of holding space for you. All relationships need healthy people to be able to hold space for each other. But we also need to be cognizant that it's two-way. One person cannot forever be holding the space, doing things for you, always solving your problems, always rescuing you, but you don't do the same. It's not reciprocal. So that's what I would say about emotional labor.
Yeah, John, and I could also add, most parents, or I've seen emotional labor in homes that are faced with divorce, where one parent really has to labor emotionally a lot to maintain this relationship with their child, or if the other parent is not is not healthy. They are not feeding healthy stuff to this other child. So let's say if you have two different homes, you find that one parent is really doing a lot of stuff for this. So they end up getting really drained, just to maintain, for the sake of maintaining this relationship. So now where do we draw, maybe a question for you, John, where do we draw the line, when it comes to such situations where you also need to maintain your sanity, but you have a child here or you have an ex-spouse here that has violated all forms of boundaries with your children. So you have to labor so much to maintain that relationship, and which breeds a lot of resentment, disrespect, even among parents and kids. Yeah.
So that one is a very difficult one, especially when there is a broken home, because again, if the foundation of the relationship was based on boundary violations that were never spoken, which is usually, again, a reason why most homes end up in divorce, right? Because somebody has violated and violated and violated, and at some point you're just like, can't do it. There was physical abuse, there was emotional abuse, there was all sorts of abuse. Co-parenting with such a person is not going to be easy. It's definitely not going to be easy. So it is hard to say, how are you going to do it without being the person who is doing all the emotional labor, whether you're the father or the mother. There's also so many different aspects of how do you get the other person to see that you're laboring? Are they even willing to see that there's labor here? It also goes down to how was the other person raised. If it's a man who was raised in a home where the mother did everything and everything fell on the mom, he doesn't know any different, and he may not be willing to do any different. So you're going to have to carry that emotional labor. So it's a very slippery slope.
I see situation, yes.
Yeah, but what I like to ask is, if you are able to have a conversation with this person, whoever the other parent is having that list of all the things, again, that you have to do and you have to think of, and then delegating. It would be nice if you took this from me. It would be nice if you did this. It would be nice if you did this. And if you're the partner who is trying to do better and you don't know where to start, questions you can ask yourself are, am I doing my share? Am I doing my fair share of what needs to be done for these children to be raised the right way? Do I have a sense of the level of contribution my partner or my ex-partner is doing to be able to take over some of the things? Do I even know what a day in the life of partner looks like, right? It's just being able to question ourselves and asking ourselves, do I consistently help, or am I just coasting through life? Am I stepping in for the invisible work? Because there's invisible work that is being done, right? There's the bedtime stories, there's the waking up and going to the ER in the middle of the night. Am I involved for that? And if I'm not, because I don't live in the same home, what can I take off this person's plate to help in this emotional labor? So that's a gist of it, Posa, for now.
Yes, and I've shared an article. It's something about death by 1,000 cuts. What someone who went through, who's, I think, got divorced, and it's all that emotional labor. And you, and ladies, you might not be the one pushing heavy stuff, but at the end of the day, you feel so exhausted. It's because your brain has been working because you're trying to fix that, and you never quite appreciate it because it doesn't look like tangible labor, but it costs you, and you need to put boundaries and just state from the beginning your what needs to be done so that you don't suffer. Okay, Joanne Hatimae, let's move to the other boundaries.
So the other boundaries are time boundaries, intellectual boundaries, and material boundaries. Time boundaries, we Africans, I'm going to address Africans because we are the ones who violate this one the most. We always say there's no hurry in Africa, or I'm just here around the corner, yet you're still at home, you haven't even taken a shower and somebody's waiting for you at the restaurant. That's a time boundary, right? Not respecting other people's time, most violated. Coming late, doing things late, all the things. That is time boundaries, wasting people's time, right? Then there's intellectual boundaries. This is basically taking somebody else's thoughts and ideas and using it for and taking credit for things that you did not come up with. And we see this a lot in social media. We see this a lot in education, where you write a paper and you don't give credit where it's needed, right? Or where it's required. So while intellectual boundaries are violated consistently, I may put a post out there on my social media and poster takes it and posts it without giving me credit. It's a problem. That's an intellectual boundary because it took my time, my thoughts, my research to come up with that thing. So if you're out there posting people's stuff, give the credit. You can copy it verbatim and then just say, this is by so and so, right? So that's intellectual boundaries. Material boundaries are your personal belongings, your things. If I lend you my book, return it. If I give you my music, return it. If I give you my car, bring it back clean, put gas in it, right? If you borrow my clothes, return them in the condition that you received them and return them on time. So it is all about communicating what is okay and what's not okay in all those aspects. But I do want to say, like, especially in terms of time, there are things that we do that really are sometimes culture. Like I've noticed a lot of, when I visit home, Kenya, people call and they don't leave a message, but they'll call you 50 times if you don't answer the call. They just call and call and call and call. That is a violation of my time. It's an interruption of whatever I'm doing because I could be in a meeting. I've noticed that you've called. I will call you back. You can send me a text. And it could be a culture, it could be technology, it could be not knowing, it could be all the things, right? I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but it's also understanding that just because I didn't answer your call does not mean I'm not going to call you back. There's also where somebody owns a business. A lot of us want services for free. We don't want to pay for things. You don't want to pay for my services. You want me to give you all the things I know for free, but you will go pay Lydia if she says, this is my price for the thing, this very thing. You pay Lydia $2,000, but for me, you're like, oh, it's too expensive because I'm your family member or I'm your friend. Pay people for for their services because they took time to learn the thing that they're learning. I highly recommend, and this is what I do for myself. If Lydia is offering a service that I want and I'm not able to afford, I will say, you know what? It's not within my budget right now. I will go save up my coins and come back when I have money. Versus saying it's too expensive, because saying it's too expensive is invalidating the worth of the person and the time they have taken to learn the thing. If I'm a PhD, it took me 20 years to learn the thing, right? As a coach, I spend a lot of time reading and studying and researching and doing all the things to learn the things I know. Therefore, if my price point is not within your budget, that's okay. That's okay. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I don't expect to give my stuff for free. I choose to do this forum for free because that's my way of giving back. But if the class I'm offering is too expensive, just say, you know what, it's not within my budget. If I'm a person who cooks and I sell samosas for $2 and for $2 per samosa, or chapatis for $2 per chapati, or cakes. I sell my cakes for $100 for a 1-tier cake. If that's too expensive for you, just say that's not within my budget and go find somebody who is within your budget, because you will always find people who are within your budget. Saying something is too expensive to the person is kind of diminishing the value of that person's product. So I like to just say, don't tell people, don't project. It is a projection, right? It is a projection of what you're incapable of on the person. Just move on swiftly. And then asking people to do favors for free consistently, it's a violation of time boundaries, not considering what a person has to do. Asking somebody to travel across town when you could just meet them halfway is a violation of a person's time boundary. For those of us who are people leaders, if you're a leader in an office space or you own a business that you hire people, stop asking people to work for you for free. It is not okay. It's not okay. They have to feed their families. The economy is the same for them. That same economy that you're trying to neutralize and save money on is the same economy they live in. So if milk is $5 or 500 shillings or 5 rupees or 5 whatever, it is the same milk they are buying for their family. So pay them for their time. So that's what I would say in terms of time boundaries. And I'll stop there.
Add something on time boundaries. And this is my personal opinion, but I've seen it work when I started setting time boundaries. We are fond of just sending out invites or inviting people. I call you last night, Joanne. I have this going on. Can you come tomorrow? I mean, I don't know whether you had plans tomorrow. I did not give you, if it's not an emergency, please send out invites, way earlier before the event so that I make plans around that. We tend to violate those boundaries a lot because we think our friends or families are just there at our beck and call, right? And so I used to really feel bad when I would invite people the night before and they don't show up. I become very resentful. Why didn't you show up for my party, or why didn't you show up for a luncheon that I was having? But really, I did not send out these invites a day or two. It was not an emergency for you to plan around your time. So that is a very big way that I see we also violate people's time boundaries. At the place of work, you just can't set up a meeting. At least for my work, I can't set up a meeting today with my boss and expect her or him to show up. No, they have other things they need to do. So let's really look at ensuring that we are not violating other people's boundaries, and do not allow other people to also violate your boundaries, especially when it comes to time, because time is very valuable. You need to have a plan and you need to have a schedule around how you spend your time and who you spend it with. The other boundary, John, that I would really like us to talk about is financial boundary. That kind of ties into the material boundaries. That is also something that I see most people violate around, and it's all about money, how you spend your money, who you spend it on. People just wake up and ask you for money, expecting that you need to give them money. If you don't, you are, you're not being a team player, or you're not being a good friend or a family member. When you give people money, they don't return it to you. So that is a violation of someone else's financial boundaries. Yeah.
Yep.
And one other thing I want you to talk about is, I don't know what we will call it, social media boundaries. Listen, this is what I mean. Like all these people who just dump you in WhatsApp groups that you didn't, WhatsApp, Facebook, and then those people who just come and vomit on your Facebook post asking for stuff. Can we, because I think it's very cultural, can we talk about it? And asking my children who you've never met to send you money. It ties both on the social media and the financial boundaries.
So I would say, I think I call that the social media / digital boundaries, right? So for context, for those who are on this call who are not African, WhatsApp is an app that is owned by Facebook, I think, that is used for communication, and you're able to bring groups. You're able to create groups. So it is a useful tool when you need to communicate something to a large group of people quickly. However, there are people who misuse it. I may set it up to convey a message to my family, and then all of a sudden it becomes this thing where people are just dumping random things on there that are not useful to me.
Mhm.
So I think things are evolving where people are starting to notice and use the tools for what they are, right? So like for me, for example, nobody on the face of earth, including Mark Zuckerberg, can add me to a WhatsApp group without my permission. I have set it up where I'm like, nobody can add me. So you have to
Give
send me
consent,
an
yeah.
invite.
Yeah.
And usually what I do is I'll say, Lydia, what is this WhatsApp group for? And you'll say, oh, Posas, somebody died, we are collecting money. I'll be like, give me where I need to send my money. I don't need to be in a WhatsApp group for that, right? So I am in just very few WhatsApp groups, right? The other thing that we do that truly, truly violates digital experiences, social media experiences, is those of us who like to go on full-blown fights with random strangers on social media.
Mhm.
Don't do it. Like, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy. You are creating an environment for yourself where you could lose your job, you could lose opportunities because of how you're showing up on social media. So let's say I post something on my book, on my Facebook, or my Instagram, or on my WhatsApp message. That is not an invitation for you to debate with me on my thoughts, right? It's what I think, what you think is your right. It's not up to you to come and have this debate and argument about my thoughts, right? Again, it's my intellectual thoughts and processes. I see people have full-blown fights on a post, like Joanne posted something, and then Lydia and Posa have gone on a full-blown fight on Joanne's wall, and Joanne is not even involved. And then you find Lydia violated her social media policy for her job, and she's lost her job because now it became ugly and she insulted somebody. One, read your social media policies for your job, because you are a representative of your employer, whether you like it or not, whether you know it or not, you are a representative. For those of you who actually work in a corporation somewhere, especially in the United States of America, they are very, like, there's small print that you need to read about your presence on social media. Read, because it will get you fired from your job. I think I'll stop there and see if anybody else has something to say about digital or social media violations. But yeah, I see people commenting here about how to change your settings.
And Joanne, there's a crossover between the intellectual and social media. Especially it afflicts coaches. I know someone I used to belong to a what is it called? A weight loss group, not ours, Joanne, another one. And I would research stuff and put it there. And someone would just copy that stuff and make like a coaching thing from it. I was like, I'm doing homework for someone to earn that money. And you know, these small groups, you put like 1 month challenge, you research, you tell people, eat this, and it's their work. Even if it's 200 bob, pay them. And people just copy paste that message, go start their own things and steal and rob from you. It needs to stop. I think
I've actually seen somebody copy paste a person's entire program and go do the same thing and not even change the words, nothing. It is a violation of that intellectual boundary. It is a violation of the person's time, all the things. It's plagiarism and it's illegal. It is illegal. Don't do it.
Yeah, and most people actually who violate these boundaries do not have boundaries themselves. So it's easier because they do not even know what that is. And I like to say you cannot control, especially in social media, it's very hard to control what people post or say, and violating your boundaries, but you can control how you react to them. As a coach, if you use my material that I've used and you do not give me credit, then I would reach out to you and we'll see what to do next. If I use someone's material, they have every right to reach out to me if they can. If not, as you say, it's plagiarism. Multi-level marketing is another one. Oh my goodness. It's just so much. Just make sure you understand, you're self-aware of this boundary game and how to set those so that you're actually able to put a stop to when people are violating your own boundaries, because you cannot control what other people do.
The other thing I want to say, especially for those of us who are in the coaching space, whenever we have these types of sessions where you either put out a post or have a public what is it called, a public session like this one, people tend to dump their life stories or things that they're going through on us coaches, right? And it's a slippery slope. I understand that everybody needs a person to speak to, a person who can hear them, understand them, and help them. It is absolutely crucial for people to also know who has earned the worth or the trust to hear your story. Everybody has not earned the right to hear your story, whatever your story is. Stop dumping your life struggles and things on random internet people. You may know me because I'm a coach and I have a social media presence, but I have not earned the trust I have not earned your trust to hear all the things about you. So don't just send me a message and put all your stuff out there, not knowing that maybe I have an assistant who reads that stuff, who might not be emotionally intelligent to know and do the right thing with the information you have put out there. So for most of us who are coaching out here, we have a link. Set up a call. Most of us have free consultations. Set up a call and talk to us in person. Don't just send all your stuff to Joanne's profile. You don't know who has access to Joanne's profile. You don't know whether Joanne shares her profile with the entire family and it's a family business and everybody has access to read the things, Don't do that. Don't do that. So please, please, please stop telling people who have not earned the right to know your story. Don't stop telling them the things about those intimate details about your life. It's not okay. That's how you get violated.
Okay. So I'm inviting questions, because we can talk till the cows are home. But I'm inviting questions for those who are on the call, and also my Ugandan FB person is not there. Shout out to you wherever you are. But I'm inviting questions. But this is my, the way people have to make have to make a journey in my brain sometimes. Saya, this is to you. No, it's to everyone. So Joanne, there's a thing that has happened on social media, and I know you don't like me calling out trauma porn. So people have marketed trauma porn. They're making cash out of it, and that's why they are dumping their stories everywhere because it's attractive. I've seen someone gone on a whole rampage and was invited to a famous YouTuber's page to talk about that thing, because that famous YouTuber will get money from the whole thing. Yeah. So we are cashing out on our trauma porn. So, and Sarah, the questions to you are, because you wear our education hat and our pastoral hat. One is, as someone who's traveled both worlds, and I've seen like my kids have to turn their from elementary school, they had to turn their work to something called Turn It In to just check for plagiarism. Yeah, we are not teaching our children all the way till university. There's someone I think who was discontinued from postgraduate med school because he plagiarized someone's thesis. So what are we doing to help out our kids, because they don't know that the plagiarism they are doing is wrong? Yet here, like here, it's intellectual property is key, and people are taught from early on that you can't do this. If you're gonna do this, reward it and attribute the scholarship, the authorship to someone else. So that's one. What are we doing to our children? The third thing is sometimes we might have boundaries. We are nice and iffy from Monday to Friday. For we Sabbath keepers, boundaries drop because if the pastor, what the pastor says goes. And sometimes now for Kina Joan on Sunday and for my Hussein brother on Friday, that boundary just drops because the religious leader holds such power on us that we drop it. What are we doing? Yes.
Yeah, and as Saya says, a quick one for Saya too. Saya, I would also like you to kind of expound on the religion and the boundary between religion and fanatism. That's what we're seeing in our world today, where, you know, I don't know whether people really understand the difference being a fan and being in a religion, and people have become followers of religion so much that we are losing a lot of our faithful spiritual people to religion instead of just being, you know, spiritual. I don't know how to put that, but there's a lot of fanaticism going on. And so preachers and imams and all those are taking advantage of the masses because of religion and whatever boundaries not being set.
How much am I being paid for this one?
There's a financial boundary over there.
There's a clear financial boundary for this. First of all, thanks for everything that has been said. I couldn't hold myself laughing at the whole let me take you for lunch thing. I just hope you didn't eat like, this one in a lipiwa, I'm being paid.
I was very new to the US, so I ate, you know, without and when you know someone is paying for your bill, you know how that goes. You're like, oh, it's not in my pocket. So the bill comes to, and I'm like, oh.
And they're probably encouraging you like, oh, you have a really good appetite.
To go, yeah.
Okay, but back to this. So let's begin. I think, funny enough, the answer to both the education questions posed and the religion has to do with two simple things: information and reading. So yes, especially the people on the continent, our education system, let me use Kenya, which I'm more familiar with, because we were a very crammy, very regurgitative, 844 encouraged a lot of that. It naturally lent itself to practices where intellectual property was not respected. Let me give a good example is composition writing. If Posa wrote a good composition, that never happened. But let's if she ever wrote a good composition, it was read, you know, across to all the classes. So the message that was sent across is not a question of style and the principles of good composition. It was, this is what a good composition looks like. And so naturally what subliminally was then communicated is, if you can reproduce that, you're good. Okay, we did not respect that as, hey, this is Posa's intellectual property. We need to pick the principles from it and not the actual document. So that permeated every area of life. I agree, in Africa, we introduce checks way later in life. And it's because our education system is very cookie cutter. When you just think about it, all the way up to your O levels, your Form 4, you're basically doing the same things. It's mole concept and mountains, oceanography, all those things we were learning. So basically the answers are more or less the same. teachers encourage this through various ways of helping their children to cheat, their students to cheat, whether it's your bio teacher coaching you about the potential practical at KCSE. And so the whole school has the same understanding, like largely up to fourth form, outside of the idea that you cannot bring in copying material into an exam. We did not see the fact of reproducing similar answers as being a disrespect of intellectual stuff. Now, people become introduced to it educationally. People get introduced to this at college. And for many of them, actually, not even first to fourth year, you keep continuously seeing the memes for when your friend gives you their homework and you tell them, hey, just change it so that it's not too obvious. It's partly an infrastructure problem because, hey, some classes are 100 learners being marked by one person and the assignment is being written on paper. So the teacher has no time to cross-reference every work with, turn it in works or digital submissions. But if we are to reverse it, we need to go all the way back to primary school, to the formative stages, and begin driving to people, the students, the mindset of, hey, there's a difference between principles and practice. I have some faith in the Kenyan situation that CBC will help us do this, because what CBC does is it teaches you a bunch of principles. Then you're told, hey, go work at home with your father or your mother and, make ABCD. And when you bring it, there's going to be a diversity. And I think that over time would be great. And then secondly is beginning to, as learning is becoming more digitized, there will be the push for that. But I clearly recognize that there is a challenge with that. Are we doing enough? No. Are we doing it early? No. Are we aware there's a need? Yes. In certain fields, say like coding, like when you're writing coding, there's actually allowable plagiarism in coding, because if I want to write code that does something on the front end or on the back end, and it has already been there, there are multiple libraries that do that, where I can just literally lift the code and put it in it and just indicate in my documentation. So such fields may not be feeling the same thing you feel in public health or in ICT or some other different field. But definitely, there's a challenge, and it comes from our competitive cramming spirit, and it just needs to be reversed. Religion. So, it's very hard to answer this question without looking defensive. So I'll just try to be extremely objective. So my opening statement is this: you don't judge a religion by its abuse, you judge it by its tenets. So any ideology, whether it is atheism as an ideology or human rights as an ideology or Christianity as an ideology, Islam as an ideology, can become victim of abuse. Any ideology can be abused when it goes to excess. Now, these people who become excess are now the ones who become fanatics. But the making of a fanatic is pretty straightforward. It's really, it's not very straightforward, but there are certain, what are they called? There are certain ingredients that make it. One is usually half knowledge or no knowledge. You've probably seen the meme about the writing about somebody who assassinated in the name of a religion, and the reason he gave is because the person whom he killed was secular. Okay, and then when he was asked what is secular, he said, "I don't know. My religious leader said it was secular." In other words, this guy hadn't read for himself or understood for himself. And therefore, the cure for that, and happens in any domain, whether it's Christianity, Islam, extreme Hinduism, extreme atheism. People forget that atheism was behind the ideologies of Pol Pot and communist Mao. So both religion and irreligiosity can become victims of extremism. So the first thing that is needed is for people to be educated. I personally see things online and I cringe. I see some of the so-called deliverance services and they're just so mindless. Like, how does your pastor kick a ball to you and you fall down? Or some of the violations on, people touching women in completely inappropriate ways. Or I recently saw a pastor weeping, like literally lashing out at his, and I'm thinking like, what on earth? This is not even, this is, first of all, just at the intellectual level, this is nonsense. It doesn't make any bit of sense at all. And you will find that generally the people who are, and I'm not saying as a rule, but generally the people who are exploited in this way are mostly either poor and or illiterate or semi-illiterate, or whichever way or the other, they have not come to read the material, the religious material they are adhering to for themselves. And then they are next raised in a place where the boundaries are such that they have to cede their reasoning and their decision-making to someone else, whether it's to the priest or to the imam or anything. Any space where that happens is going to lead to a form of abuse, a blurring of boundaries, and definitely a variant of fanaticism. The way out is, it's not just because I'm a Christian, but Jesus was brilliant. He was like so many years ahead of his time. The many times Jesus was asked a question, and then he would not give the answer. What he would say is, how do you reason? How do you read? How in King James it says, how readest thou? He doesn't, he was not giving an answer and saying, hey, this is the way. He says, no, how do you understand? What have you read? What is written? So he was always referring people to source material and then inviting them to think for themselves. And so I think a cure against the blurring of lines in religious circles that produces fanaticism is to set up environments so that the inquirer can believe and the believer can learn to inquire. Where that line is removed, fanaticism will. Where the inquirer cannot believe, where the inquirer cannot have freedom to believe, or given reasons enough to lead them to the point of belief, they will either be locked out or castigated. And where the believer cannot inquire, where what they just take is, Swahili brings some things better than English at this point. It was, okay, let me say
it, we will translate.
Aya iliteremshwa, like it was
brought down.
Yes, it makes the believer cannot inquire, then whatever religious authority has rule over them is going to hold sway. However, I'm not able to authoritatively speak about all faith traditions, but for the Christian faith, questioning is baked in. Questioning is baked into the fabric of true Christianity by none less than God himself, who says, okay, come now, let us reason together. If you're supreme, if God is saying, come now, let's reason together, who's your priest? Who's your pastor? Who's your evangelist to say these things are not reason? No, God himself says, come now, let's reason together. And then in a brilliant passage, when you read the book of Revelation, I know most guys, I was in a high school where a guy stood up to preach from the book of Revelation, and those protests, like, no, you can't read that book. Our book usually has hard things, like, and he had to change, like, talk of audience power. But the book of Revelation, the first 3 chapters is Jesus himself writing, asking John, who's the person writing, to write letters to churches. And he keeps saying to every single of the 7 churches, he says these words, to the angel in the church of X, whether it's Smyrna or Laodicea or wherever, he says, write these things. If I'm writing to Joanne, my expectation is that she will read. For her to understand what I have to say is that she will read. I think a lot of Christianity and a lot of all other faiths need to go back to understanding that the reason their texts were written is so that they would be read. There's a lot of people not reading. One branch of Christianity that has produced a lot of these funny things is the whole idea of prosperity evangelism, where God is just basically seen as an accomplice to laziness. And all you have to do is buy something here and do a gimmick there, and God will be able, like some of the things people promised there is if God actually did them, he'd be causing recession. Like if God suddenly just produced money into your account, he'd be guilty of creating a recession. But that is not biblical. And the people who fall prey to this are probably people who are who are going through some suffering, who have not taken time to read for themselves. And therefore, I think if you can support, if you're sympathetic to the Christian ministry, please look out for a ministry that is big on teaching, that teaches the word and encourages people to think and reason for themselves, okay? It's not the people who are necessarily popular who are doing the right thing, but it is the people who are teaching people to think for themselves. Again, those two things need to be there. The inquirer should be able to believe, the believer should be able to inquire. When that schism happens, fanaticism is inevitable.
And that applies to all other religions too, right, Zion?
Yes, true, to any faith system or any ideology. If in any ideology where inquiry is suppressed or belief is demanded without evidence, fanaticism will ensue inevitably.
Joanne,
I wanted to.
We need to ask Susan, I think. Please, could you clarify, Stella, sorry, oh, it's an S. Stella, could you clarify your question? You can either voice it or you can text again, or you can Swahilinize it. But Joanne, go ahead.
I was just going to say I wanted to piggyback on everything that Saya has said, but from a different perspective, from a perspective of parents raising children. If you are a parent who is raising children in a certain religion or in a certain environment, again, your belief system and how you impose it on them creates these cultish behaviors, right? If you're a person who believes everything the religious leader is saying without questioning it, you're imposing it on the children, which is why we see the cults, right? We see all this cultish behavior, whether it's from the Islam perspective where somebody is told, go bomb yourself and you're going to get 12 virgins or however many virgins, or if it's the Christians who, I saw something in South Africa where the one Sunday the preacher told them to go eat grass, and you see all these adults kneeling down and eating grass, or the one that Saya said who was whooping people in front of the church. If it does not feel right to you as an adult, because we all have that God-given intuition, if you're sitting in a church or a mosque or a temple or whatever religious place, and whatever the leader is saying does not feel right, go investigate it for yourself. If your children come to you and say, today in Sunday school or in madarasa or in whatever the class they have as children, the person said X, Y, Z, and that does not sound right to me, that's not how life works. Entertain those questions from your children so that they can be able to research stuff for themselves, so that they can be able to think for themselves and decide for themselves. Sometimes as parents, you also have to put your ego aside and your need to control and allow your children to go search for the religion that will work for them, while guiding them and not allowing them to go into cultish beliefs, but just allowing them to explore what works for them. Because a lot of times we impose religion on children and we don't allow them to explore the religions of the world. Because yes, I'm Christian, but my child might like Buddhism better than Christianity. It might work better for her. So am I going to tell her, as long as you live in this house, you're not going to do Buddhism, or you cannot be Muslim, or you can, all these things, multiple truths can coexist in humanity. There is values of the home that need to be followed. There are rules of the home that need to be followed, but there's also the need to allow our children to explore things that may not be familiar to us, that may work for them better than what we have. And again, a lot of us grew up in religious homes where that is the only way, that is the only know-how, but there's a need to also just learn from others, look at life from a place of curiosity, and children tend to look at life from a place of curiosity that we adults don't allow them to do. So that's all I would like to add on that perspective.
Okay, I think Stella has clarified the question. We need to wind down because the chickens have even settled. They are starting to sleep. As a Luya, our chicken are sleeping, we need to sleep.
Where do we start mending the relationship with our parents with what we know now? I would say mending a relationship with a parent is a complex thing, first of all. It depends on the level of harm. It depends on whether you have forgiven them. It depends on whether they are willing to change. And more importantly, whether you're willing to accept them for who they are, regardless of whether they're willing to change or not change. Because depending on the generational gap, there are parents who are not going to change. They're not, it's us not placing an expectation for them to be a different person than they are right now. So like for most of us, maybe our parents are in their 80s. It's 80 years of unlearning stuff based on new information. The information we have access to might not be information your parents have. They may not have the capacity, the capability, or the willingness to change. It is you saying to them, Mom, Dad, this is not going to work for me. You cannot talk to me that way anymore. I don't appreciate you talking to me that way. I love you. I'm going to continue doing this. I'm going to continue supporting you, but you cannot call me stupid. You cannot call me the names that maybe your parents have been calling you. It's just allowing, it's you seeing them from a human perspective as a person who has their own wounding, their own belief systems, and understanding also the family of origin that each parent came from, right? Because understanding where they came from and their journey that is their journey and not yours will also help you humanize them and humanize the mistakes that they made and be able to forgive them without imposing a certain expectation based on your new information. Because if I'm looking at my mom from my perspective, all the coaching I've gone through, all the therapy I've gone through, she has not done any of those things. She's not going to show up the way I expect her to show up. But I can set some healthy boundaries with her and say, you know what, that's not going to work for me. I'm not getting involved in that. You guys deal with it on your own. It's just understanding the dynamics. It's a hard thing, but it's possible.
Yeah, we need to afford them grace and don't force it on them. And I always say, for my people, which village are we? Olukaka village. It's not a village, but let's call it Olukaka. Olukaka means fence. Olukaka, my people in Olukaka village, if you can afford to send Joanne and Lydia there to speak, and someone with the correct translation translated to them at a level they can understand, well and good. Even if they get one point from Joanne and Lydia, well and good. If you can sponsor that, go ahead and do it.
Well, it actually takes, we may not go there, but it actually just takes one person in the family to break these cycles, to say it runs in the family, because it just takes one family, but this is where it runs out. So as Jonah said, let us not have unrealistic expectations. I know so much now. My mom is probably just wondering, what are you talking about? Especially when it comes to boundaries around money, parents asking for money. And this time I say, no, Mom, that's not within my budget. I'll plan for that because it's not an emergency. Look within yourself, see what is realistic. The self-awareness part is a great spot to start in, because now you're aware, You understand your woundings, your trauma, deeply ingrained in your generation, your grandmother, your grandfather. And if you follow those generations, you'll see how they hurt, how the boundaries have been violated over and over again. And one important thing is stay away from personal attacks. Address the issues, not your mother, not your father, not your sibling. Address the time boundary, the money boundary, not them as an individual, because they are also really in this trauma that they found themselves in. And so they are not necessarily the problem, but the problem is the issue that needs to be addressed. So it takes just one person to say no to this, and then the rest of the people will kind of learn and understand why you're saying no. And you'll see, I've seen a lot of improvement in my family, in my own family, with my friends and all that, when I started setting healthy boundaries and not over explaining myself, but just making them aware that this is my limits and this is why I need to do this for myself, for my sanity, for my children. And that has really, I have lost a few friends, family members. That's okay. But I'm now in a very healthy space to even be able to help other people set these healthy boundaries and break these cycles that they find themselves in. It's a very difficult and very lonely path sometimes, but once you get on that path and consistently display the same, have the same stand where you're not saying this today, then tomorrow you're saying this, but consistently stay on that point until you heal yourself, you will heal your children, and we will continue to heal generations to come. We might not heal the ones that were before us, but you make sure that your children and their children and so forth are healthy, and we are healing a whole continent, Africa, which is our mission here. And then once we heal Africa then is very powerful to heal the rest of the world.
Amen.
Yes.
Okay, tufunge kituo, boundary attained.
Yeah, we have 7 minutes here to talk. Yes,
we have overgone, but tufunge kituo. Last words, Lydia, we'll start with you, and then please put your pages where you can be found, all of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So last words, and then Karen, you will close for us.
So my last word is, how do you begin setting boundaries? Starts with self-awareness. If you do not like the way you feel or act, know that you have the power to change it. You are the master of your own universe. You control 100% of your actions and reactions. Embrace that uneasiness that comes with it, the uncomfort at first, but it all starts by saying no to what does not serve you and saying yes to what serves you, and by standing your ground without guilt and shame, and ensuring that you are responsible and you're fully aware of your actions and reactions. It's not something that you just do, it's a lifelong habit that you create and diligently practice every single day.
Amina.
And where I can be found on Facebook, I'll put my link there. I go by Lydia Kimberly on Facebook. Kimberly is just my fancy name, my alter ego. Kaunda is my, what can I say, my true original name, my father's name. And so you can find me on Facebook as Lydia Kimberly. I have a page, Breaking the Cycles. I'll put my link there for anyone who wants to reach me. I have a class starting in January, so we can connect if you're interested. Thank you.
Joanne, go.
So last words, or rather final thoughts. One, it is not uncommon to set healthy boundaries and not feel guilty about saying no. It is natural. So when you say no, it is okay to feel guilty. It is okay to feel bad. Just don't rescind your no if it doesn't need to be rescinded, right? You can say no, but if something changes and then you're available, by all means, change your no to a yes. What is not okay is creating confusion where you are saying yes when you need to say no, and saying no when you need to say yes, and creating all this mess. I also want to say that it is absolutely crucial that we recognize that being able to do this work, whether it's boundaries, whether it's reparenting ourselves, whether it's doing or what Lydia is doing by changing the cycles and all the things, is a privilege. And when I say privilege, I mean it is privilege to have access to a coach, privilege to have access to people who know the things that we know. Like Posa said, the people in her village may not know any of these things. And therefore, it is absolutely crucial to operate from a place of empathy. Empathy is operating from a place of letting people, like understanding where a person is coming from. So like for me, I look at maybe a single mother who has 3 kids, and the person who she had the kids with is gone and not willing to participate. That mother is operating on autopilot and survival mode. I don't expect her to be able to understand the boundaries and to be able to do the work the way I am able to do the work. So just give people the grace that they need to have. And also understand that it is not always about you. The thing that is happening when somebody is violating a boundary or when somebody is showing up a certain way, it is not about you, it is about them and how they're feeling at that very moment. So the one tool I like to use for my classes, the boundaries class and the inner child class, which is the reparenting class, is emotions. Emotions, I use emotions wheel. Know how you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and understand what you need. If you cannot be able to communicate your emotions to yourself, not necessarily to somebody else. If I ask you, Posa, how are you feeling right now? And you don't know how you're feeling, you're not going to be able to communicate what you need and why you need it. So it starts with us, and it's always about being introspective in all situations, so that you're not bleeding on people who did not cut you, so that you're not showing up as passive aggressive and all the things. It's just being in tune with yourself, how you're feeling. And feelings are not here in your head. Feelings are from neck down. It is a sensation that your body gives at all times. So if somebody violates your boundaries, you will feel it in your body. It may be a rising of anger that just your body gets hot, or sweaty palms or something. Your body will tell you. Everybody's body tells you something about your emotions. Pay attention to those things. That is the baseline of all things that we are doing, is understanding your emotions, why they're being triggered, and what you need to do with them. So with that, I can be found on Facebook and Instagram. I've put my pages on there. Follow me. I announce my classes and all the things I do on those pages. I do my classes, the inner child class, which is reparenting ourselves, basically looking at our childhood wounding and figuring out how to show up differently. I do that every quarter. And then the boundaries classes, every quarter. I haven't been consistent because of time again, but I also like to offer those on a quarterly basis, and I will be more consistent with that. The boundaries class is 8 weeks, is going to be 8 weeks long, starting January. And then the inner child class is going to be 16 weeks long. So every quarter I will offer that. My profiles have a link to my calendar. If you need to have a conversation, I offer a free consultation. You can set up a meeting with me. And I'm grateful for all you guys for showing up and wanting to learn, and giving us the space to teach and also to learn from you, because it's not just about us teaching you. We also learn from you so that we can create better material from what we learn from you guys, the needs that are out there. Thank you, Posa and Saya, for providing this platform. It is absolutely important. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
So for those who, the work of building boundaries, just like any other thing, is going to be challenging. But in my final words, is to remind us the end product of well-built boundaries. And I just want to highlight three things. Well-built boundaries are able to create unique or distinctive identities. When borrowing from the biblical narrative, when God had the raw material of darkness and desolation and everything was there, and then he began putting boundaries day by day, by the end of the week, we had very many unique identities. We had entities called trees. We had an entire entity called land, another one called sea, another one sky, and animals of all manner. And this was a product of, in a great sense, boundaries. And so, yes, the work of building boundaries or readjusting them, of moving them, will seem taxing. But one of the things you can be able to know is when it is well done, you are able to have a good and a very strong identity. And not only you, but the people around you. And individuals who operate from a clear sense of their identity are able to navigate life with a bit more confidence and clarity. The second thing that well-done boundaries do create is distinctive environments of productivity. So still staying with my metaphor of creation, when the water was everywhere, nothing could do well. And so the water had to be separated. Part of it created the land, and part of it created the sea, and then the dry land appeared. And now because of dry land, we are able to do agriculture. Yet at the same time, the ocean is able to support oceanic life. Fish do well in water, an elephant does well on land. And all this is the product of boundaries. They've created distinct environments, productive environments for distinctive things. And so for some of us, our boundaries have been so blurry that work has spilled into the family has spilled into the social media has spilled into your faith, and everything is everywhere. But if you begin drawing the proper boundaries, as we've learned today, you are able to create distinct environments for productivity in every space and sphere of your life. That should be able to decrease the rush in your life and increase the focus and impact that you would have. And then thirdly is unique boundaries are able to separate things that should not be joined. Now, again, same metaphor, light and darkness had to be separated, land and water had to be separated, male and female had to be separated, and day and night had to be separated. And what this did is things that would have otherwise not have been healthily combined together or effectively being together were put apart. And so it is with life every day. Like when we draw boundaries, at times the things that are hindering us from being all we should be are the things that have been unnaturally or suboptimally joined together. I hear a lot of humorous stories and some horror stories about how in-laws filter into marriages and boundaries need to be drawn there, or how bosses get into all your business, and a healthy boundary needs to be drawn there so that things that are not properly joined should be put apart. So if for nothing else, it's to relaunch us back into the world where we need to either redraw or stay confident in the boundaries we've drawn, with those three assurances: that boundaries well drawn create distinctive identities, boundaries well maintained create distinctive environments for productivity, and boundaries wisely drawn separate things that would otherwise not be well when they were joined together. Again, thanks for being with us. You will get a stream from my page. I currently do a lot of transition coaching and purpose coaching, life purpose coaching, so I help you figure out your life and how to be able to launch on. And I support a lot of people who are going into or going through important life transitions, majorly in the areas of work and of relationships. So you can reach me on my Facebook page, which is where this is going to be streamed on, which is Authentic Dialogues with Sarah Jackson. And we'll be dropping, again, link to this video, my other handles. You can be able to reach me. You can be able to call me for a free consultation, and looking forward to having a great conversation with you. I think if the plan stands, this should be our last stream for the year. Thank you, everybody who's been on the show. Thank you for today's amazing panelists, and thank you for every previous panelist and every person who's either been live here or has taken time to watch the restream. Behind the scenes, we're thinking about next year. We're thinking to do bigger. We're thinking to do better. And so just keep watching. We want to reach you. So we're having more videos, more podcasts, more trainings that is going to be put there. We can't do this without you. So please share your questions, share topics you'd like to be discussed, suggest panelists, so that in all of this, we can be able to make this about you and not just about what we want. Once again, all the best in the holiday season, and Happy New Year when you transition into that year. Back to you, Paul.
Thank you very much. Yes, we need to, my God, these are almost 3 hours. We didn't know, but thank you everyone. I'm going to stop the live stream